keys to success up front for us, we want to master our technique. Okay, we're lucky to have some good athletes in our program, but at the same time, we want to take them light years ahead of what they were when they first walked into our program. All right, and it starts with technique. We kind of got a big core of everyday drills that we use with our guys. We'll rotate through those to keep things fresh. But once we get into the nuts and bolts of the season, we're really going to rep those guys with what we're going to see that week. Okay, so that it's like second nature once it gets to the game. Defensively, it may look like we're doing a lot of things on tape, but really we want to keep it simple. Okay, we'll come into a game with probably about 3 to 4, maybe 3 stunts that we want to do up front, but we're not going to match that with every single defensive call that we have that week. Okay, if we do, I'm going to get into a stunt that we used quite a bit this year was the cross stunt up front with our D tackles. We're only going to use that with our quarters package that week. So we're not going to kind of overload our guys' heads each week. And then with the blitzes as well, we want to keep it simple for those guys. We want basically the language to carry over to different blitzes that we're going to use, so that it's like, hey guys, this one's just like the one we did last week. It's just, maybe just a little bit of a twist. Okay, but that's the biggest thing. We want to keep it simple, and the movements that we do up front, we want to make it so that we're not changing the gaps for the backers a ton. Okay, so like I said, when we do our cross stunts up front, the backers just know they have the B gaps every time we call that. So that's the biggest thing. And ultimately, everybody wants to do it to play fast and physical, but if you want to do that, they have to be able to play fast and not think. Okay, so that brings us back to just keeping it simple. Up front, on the defensive line, we have some things that we look at before each snap. Okay, before we get into our stance, before we get into our alignment, and we'll talk about those things. Our defense, when I came in as a freshman in 2007, we got into those pretty huddles and everything, and offenses are starting to speed things up. So the first thing we talk about, all right, is we look to the sideline. Everybody's going to get that defensive call before the play. Okay, and those guys know the signals as well. All right, we look for the substitutions. We're a team that heavily believes in rotating a lot to keep those guys fresh. And there are other things that we talk about before the snap that we really want to be clued into is backfield sets. We've really kind of gotten into to clear some of the confusion for those guys so that they can play faster up front as well. And it's mostly our defensive ends that do this, but we're going to use a me-you call, and this really comes into play when we play gun offset teams. So our ends line up. I guess backing up for a second, we're a 4-3 defense, okay, so we're not 3-4 or anything like that. We're basically a 4-2-5. We play with our nickel package because we're not seeing 21, 22 personnel every single week like years past. But our ends, like I said, are going to be really clued into the backfield set because it tells them a lot before the play. Okay, again, these are first, second down that we're talking here. Okay, so when the back's away from me, I'm gonna give myself a me call, because where do you most likely think the run's going if the back's away from you? It's going towards you. Okay, that's what the percentages say. Obviously, there's other runs that can go the other way. But he's gonna give myself. He's just gonna say me to myself. Okay? He's gonna say you. Okay, he's saying the run's going to you. So those guys will talk through that thing just to kind of understand what type of run that they'd be getting. And there's some weeks where we got to lay off that a little bit. You can't clue into it as much. But we'll get into it, but that will change their alignments as well once they realize, hey, I'm the guy that the run's coming to, or the run should be going away from here. And we'll talk about that. We'll also look for swipers. Okay, anytime we have 2 backs in the backfield set, those guys are going to communicate that thing. Right here. Okay, we got a fullback over here on the right. Usually the end that's covered up by the tight end, we don't see a ton of arc and kick out. So he's going to assume that the swipe's going to his partner over here. Okay, so they're looking for that stuff. We're going to get a swipe call. Okay, so the call side end over here will yell swipe, and he should see it as well. So that changes his mindset. We'll talk about the alignment here in a second and how that would affect him. So those guys are looking for that each snap. Week by week, comes in with film study, but taking a look at, the offensive lineman's stances, 2-point, 3-point, what they're doing out of those things, if that makes a difference. Whether they're heavy in their hand, light in their hand, or if there's, big splits that they create on certain plays. So that's, something that we won't talk about a ton today, but, if you see certain things, then tell your guys about it, so that they're heads up on it. Also want these guys to be really clued into the down and distance, okay? Because on early downs, we're completely clued into our key, and that's how we're going to get off the football. Okay, on pass downs, that's when we're really going to pin our ears back, and we're going to key the football, okay? But that's why they need to understand the down and distance. Okay, really talk about, perfecting what you can control up front, all right, each play. All right, and those two things being the stance and the alignment. I don't have a ton of notes on the stance. I think we have a decent general understanding of what a good defensive line stance is. But for us, our two inside guys, they're going to basically be toe to inseam, okay, shoulder width apart. We want those guys to be square. The biggest thing that we really want is their toes to be pointed forward. All right. Butts up, good arch in the back, eyes are up really to the V of the neck of your target. And the other thing is we want their hands to be up right up underneath their chin. Okay, we like it when their thumbs even already pointed up, because when we strike, we want their thumbs to be up. And we'll talk about that as well as we go. For our defensive ends, they really go maybe toe to heel. We allow them to go toe to inseam, but they can even back it up a little bit and go to toe to heel as well if that feels more comfortable for those guys. And when it comes to the alignment, all right, we do something a little bit different when it comes to defensive tackle and D-end. Our DTs are going to be lining up basically tip to tip, shoulder to shoulder, all right? And we want those guys to be really square, because the blocks that they're going to be seeing is combination blocks, whether it's scoops or reaches. Okay, so we want those guys to be straight up square, okay, tip to tip, which is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, for the ends, we do something a little bit different where we're going to tilt those guys every single base rundown. We like tilt a little bit when it comes to pass rush as well. But we don't just tell them, hey, we want you tilted a little bit. The tilt that they're going to get in is basically if you can have a laser beam come out of your eyes when you're in your stance to go right through the back heel, the back near heel of the offensive line. All right, we do that for a couple reasons here. Coach, can I borrow here for a second? All right, and we keep it simple with them. We want to tell them, hey, you're only going to either get a block to you or away from you, right? And then you can get a pass set as well. But we're talking basically run here. When I'm through that near heel, even if the run's away from me, boom, I'm taking that step, and now I'm able to get square and get to his hip for, zone read and all that stuff. Okay, if it's a run to me and he's reaching me, boom, I'm taking a step through the heels, it's right there. Especially like a 315-pounder, if I'm aimed through that heel and he opens up to reach, I can strike that thing and I have all my power right there, okay? The reason why we want more to an angled stance is because when they're square and I get a down block, there's first steps here, now there's separation, and then you try to recover and you're crossing your feet over and all that stuff. So to me, I think it's most important, thanks Coach, is when you get a down block and for the zone read. Otherwise you get yourself out of position. So we're going to be tilted to touch. When we get to, again, the backfield set, okay, they're also going to look at that. They're both going to be angled. Unless we have a tight end to our side, we're always in a 6 technique, and we might get to that today if we have time at the end. But they're looking at the backfield set, and what's going to change if it is gun offset. If I'm away from the back, I'm going to widen out a little bit. Because I want this guy to come out and really reach me. Okay, if I'm to the back, he's going to tighten down. Because I'm assuming, I'm either just going to kind of get a hinge block here on the back side of the run, or if I get a down block, I want to be able to be in a good position to really squeeze to that hip for zone read. That makes sense? Okay, the inside guys, those guys will talk a little bit too, but you can also clear up some confusion and really play fast. If this nose right here knows that the back's away from him, all right, I know I'm going to probably end up getting a hard reach or a combination block right here. I'm probably not going to get a hard scoop block to my inside, right? The run's coming to me. So those guys will clue into that a little bit too. Hopefully Don't be telling everybody in the conference, but we like when we play gun offset teams so that we can kind of play fast up front. All right? So we'll dictate our alignment based off the backfield set.